Leadership Development Program. We have another 4 minutes, so we'll just get together. Today we have the expert panel, Dr. Ilesh Jain, Dr. Sanjay Chaudhary, Dr. Vandana Jain, Dr. Preetam Samant, Dr. Praveen Krishna, Dr. Usha Kim, Dr. Kamal Kapoor, and Dr. Nitin Balakrishnan. The moderators for today's session will be Dr. Rohit Saxena and Dr. Harshul Tuck and myself, Dr. Satyajit Sinha, Dr. Srinivas Joshi and Dr. Anaga Harur. There will be 3 presentations, one by Dr. Anand Vinekar sir, one by Dr. Debashish Bhattacharya sir, and one by Dr. Arvind Srinivasan. So we'll wait for another 3 minutes before we actually start. Hi. Good morning, sir. Once again, a very warm welcome to this academic and research committee's program on leadership development. I would like to welcome the first speaker, Dr. Anand Vinekar, who is from Narayan Nethralaya, Bangalore, and who needs little introduction. He will be speaking on how do I structure my organizational activities to tackle technological advancements. Dr. Anand Vinekar, please.
Thank you, Dr. Satyajit. And thank you to AIOC and ARC for this opportunity. It's nice to be the first speaker of a beautiful session. The LDP has always been a wonderful session and it's getting better every year. I represent my institute while I make this talk. And we'll just go. No, we pehla slide nahi hai. Okay, let me just go back. Okay. Thank you. Right, so I've been given the talk to talk about how we've sort of evolved in using technology into making, at the end of the day, a better patient experience. So this is just a few of our experiences, and we're still learning. I think technology is always there to grow. So the first thing is what we've changed more recently is the NN Connect. This is like, we hate the word call center because it has a different connotation, but a connect center is obviously the first thing that everyone wants to do is to make an appointment, and that's the easiest after prioritizing what subspecialty and what they're looking for. But a little more, one step further is to actually teach our the people who run the NN Connect to answer a few basic doubts, including things like, if you want cataract surgery, femtocataract, if it's refractive surgery, what form. Now, one wouldn't expect that at a call center level, and that's usually handled by more specialists, maybe in the department, but this is something that has been evolved in training. And I think this has come a long way in helping them sort of understand at the very first interface what they might expect at the institute. And then a lot of the pre-counseling material is sent also on social media, whether it's WhatsApp, because obviously we've captured their mobile number, we've captured their email address as well. So a lot of it is sort of pre-sent to them so that they can ruminate over it at their convenience. The next thing that had a major overhaul in the past few years has been our hospital website. We've commissioned it to, of course, put out all the bots to do a in live chat and all of that. But there's also a lot of information on what kind of insurances and all the kind of practical information that you would want as a patient to see, okay, is this place for me or not? Assuming you've never heard of our institute before, because we do get a lot of patients overseas as well. So that's one of the interfaces, obviously, that they will come across. So these are just examples of screenshots from the website. And then we've realized the power of the vernacular. So I think a lot of the patient education material, be it in complex refractive surgery or VR surgery, or even our outreach programs in CVI and so on, all of it is now done in local language. Now here at this point, some of you all may be aware that the NMC bill is being discussed in Parliament. And if it comes to be an act, a lot of what we are doing might just be on the gray zone of being illegal. So I think we have to go back and see what is public education material and what is promotion to ourselves. The law is very, very clear on that, but of course it's not yet been passed as an act. And I think it's important to be sensitive to it in the coming few months. Social media obviously goes without saying. The reviews and the feedbacks is something that's extremely important. One never coerces or forces any patient to give it. A lot of it is done spontaneously, but again, this has come under the radar of the government. Possibly, this might be assumed as gray area
Initially, I
for
had
being illegal
looked up in
in case
Google,
you are
and this hospital had great
promoting
reviews.
promoting yourself through the social media. So you can give information saying this is what I can do, but at no point can you say that I'm the best, you need to come to me. Even sometimes providing a contact number or helpline number may be in the gray zone. The next 6 to 8 weeks will tell us, because by June 22nd the government is closing all of the comments, and then we'll discuss it in Parliament. Third-party surveys are good because they seem to be better than being a more biased feedback that we might have even cajoled our patients to do. And the promotion of this, if it is published, especially in the public space, is not considered advertisement. So this is something that we might want to know and look at. Now, EMR, I think all of us have. There is unfortunately no perfect EMR. But what we're trying to do is integrate patient information with all the diagnostics. So sitting in one place, we are able to see not just their current, in this example, Optos scan, but even serial, Humphrey's visual field, or their OCTs and so on. So you don't actually, the doctor doesn't have to move into the diagnostic room, but has to sit there simply and just open up with logins. Unfortunately, a lot of these licenses are expensive. And if we have 9 adult retina surgeons, so procuring 9 licenses sometimes is expensive. So one has to look at the cost and the benefit as well. But if you're a slightly smaller group, then it works really well. Now, I was talking about technology and patient safety. I think a lot of us already do all these hospital OR activities, but it's important to display them. It's important not just from an NABH point of view, but from the point of view that your patient safety, your surgical safety comes paramount. And a lot of green initiatives we've started in. We now have 4 hospitals, 4 campuses rather. The 5th one will be commissioned by the end of the year. Again, it's in Bangalore City. So, and I think all of these are across the board, and this we are doing voluntarily and not because of any statute. This is a very cool piece of research that we did with Indian Institute of Science, where we looked at the shadow photography in a very high speed. This, of course, is the very early part of the pandemic, where all of us were worried about aerosols and liquids coming out. So that's the air puff, and that's the vitrectomy. This was animal studies, and then just to show what distance and what kind of cannulas you need to know to put in just to avoid aerosol spread, because at that point of time we were looking at COVID-19. Technology and social responsibilities. This is a program that I lead. So this is, for example, using outreach, using subspecialty care into the outreach. And that's really important because otherwise the standard of care is only when they come to you and you really want to provide it right down there. So for example, the camera that costed about $110,000 US is now about 10 or 12 lakhs, after coming down into innovations under the Make in India scheme. And we are proud that this is now having a CE and FDA approval and has been sold in more than 200 countries. And this is the publication. So it's really important to publish your technological advances, because that again, in the new NMC bill is considered perfectly legal. And then this is something that we're really proud of, and we're also really proud of the fact that we have funded our own research with a few exception of few DBT grants that have happened in the past maybe 3 years. All the profits that have got from the hospital have been plowed back into research, and we have some really good state-of-the-art labs where we collaborate with a lot of doctors across the country. It's not just meant for ophthalmology now, it's also part of the larger health city that we share our campus number 2 with. And we are also now commissioned to start gene therapy, which should have started 2 years ago, but is now happening this year because of the delay in the pandemic. Now here's an example of how you can use artificial intelligence. This is one of the PhD topics of one of our fellows turned consultants in how to actually improve your patient enrollment. So what they did was basically looked at all these factors and they looked at a lot of the demographic and their clinical data, and they ran these scores. This is, I think, probably in print or has been accepted for publication. So look what's showing up. What are the kind of factors that would influence a patient to take up a particular type of surgery or a premium IOL or a premium kind of refractive surgery based on their demographics and their clinical findings. And I think this is pretty important because you can integrate this into your practice. You can actually realize and sort of channel out more information and resources to those patients who might end up as your premium patients. It's not to say that others will not be cared enough. But this is just to flag those patients who might need to be fast-tracked or shown more information in a shorter period of time. And of course, every institute, all of us have the X.
ಖಂಡಿತ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ನೀವು ಯಾವುದೇ ಪದ್ಧತಿ
I'm just going to mute that. But we've started a reversing diabetes clinic. A reversing diabetes clinic is something where we've integrated. We've integrated working with physicians and diet. My chairman leads this himself. He initially turned from vegan to now high-fat, low-protein diet, and a lot of reversal of diabetes, especially in our chronic conditions. We are now looking at diet as a control for chronic inflammatory conditions in our uveitis department, glaucoma department, retina department. So this is just one way of integrating holistic care, and this may not be technology as the way we understand it, but certainly something that benefits our patients and draws the extra set of patients, because you are now collaborating with physicians, endocrinologists, diabetologists, and what have you. And then we also have this holistic healing center, which is integrating all kinds of relaxation methodology. It's not just for CSCR. There are so many conditions, especially chronic conditions, where a peaceful mind and a healthy mind will give rise to a better outcome, even it be in ophthalmology. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Anand. Dr. Anand Vinikar is not only a national but a global authority on ROP. And we are very, very proud of him for the amazing work that he's doing in India. A lot of the things that you showed involves a lot of cost, the initial part that you showed. What would your message be to the average ophthalmologist pan-India of how to make use of the technology without the cost part?
So actually, honestly, except the laboratories, which have taken 12 years to set up, none of it is really very expensive. I think almost all of us have websites, almost all of us have social media handles. I think it's just the way we tweak it. And again, I wanted to raise the caution because the NMC bill came out only last week. And until then, we were just sailing along, believing that putting in YouTube videos and creating social handles was the way to go. But we might just have to rethink it. And it shows us how we need to adapt to the situation. And so I think, no, it's not very high cost. It's just about using your own resources in a better way. The idea here, we've always had a website, and if those of you who have visited our website 5 years ago and seeing it now, you'll notice the difference. And I think it involves some amount of professional help, but you have to guide them on what you want as an outcome. And I think that is important. So if you know your patient demographics, if you're in a city vis-a-vis a town, or if your predominant practice is a specialty like retina versus cataract or refractive, you will obviously tweak your website to do it differently. So I think not all of it is high cost at all. In fact, a lot of it is very low cost. And I only put the labs in the end because, yes, that is our USP. And we started with very, very small projects. In fact, the AI model, refractive, which Dr. Rohit leads, that's no cost at all. I mean, it's just taking in demographic details from an EMR and then looking at it prospectively after looking at the retrospective data and then feeding it into an AI model. There are wonderful AI sessions this AIOS, so I invite all of you all to come and see that. But no, I think it's just understanding what you want out of the system. So it's not always high cost.
Thank you. I understand Dr. Sanjay Chaudhary sir also has used a lot of technological advancements in his practice. What are your views, sir?
Okay, so it's actually the field of the youngsters who are very electronically savvy, and they are the ones who lead this field compared to the senior generation who are not that savvy.
I know your son is doing more.
Right. Okay. But then from his experiences, we realized, which would be very useful for the young developing doctors, that there are two elements which were doing very strongly, which was Google Ads and YouTube. Right. Google Ads involved fixing up a cost for that thing to come up, and YouTube was actual social media marketing. But his experience I can share with you is, we realized that Google Ad was no use. It was really not working, but YouTube promotions really work. If that is of use to the people, if they want to save their money, spend it in an area which has a greater impact than this side.
Thank you so much.
I just
Thank you
want to
so
add one
much.
thing, sir. Yes, that's exactly what we believed and we did. But that's, I believe they call it search engine optimization. And that is exactly what has been named as illegal in the new NMC bill. There is actually a subdivision saying that any kind of tweaking of social media to make your name appear above anyone else as a competition, while you can do it if you're a restaurant, we are considered differently, which is kind of odd because we also come under the Consumer Protection Act, but that's a separate debate. So I think what we used to believe as true just 2 weeks ago, we might have to rethink. In the time when I made this presentation, and what I'm saying now seems to be so contradictory because that's how fast the scenario is changing.
So, Dr. Anand, the search engine optimization could be either by an organic form where the organic growth takes place, or it could be a paid form.
Yes.
So
The paid form has been
come under this thing, but the organic search engine optimization would still be allowed.
We will have
I
to
believe.
wait. I believe the IMA has written to the government for changes. So I think we'll know by the end of July.
Just one more query is, the legal implications, like you said, I think they differ for an organization under a company and for an individual. I believe as individuals, the advertisement is against the MCI code, but as a company, as an organization, I think it's more liberal, I believe.
Yes, because there's something called the Clinical Establishment Act. If your state has not got a separate act under like Karnataka has a Karnataka Private Medical Association Act, so we don't come under the CEA, but Maharashtra, I believe, does come under the CEA. So their organizations have been exempted from individuals, but that is no longer going to happen. So in the what they have defined as a healthcare provider, it goes all the way down to a mohalla clinic, a private practitioner, a government, anyone. In fact, it's crosspathy, which is allopathy, homeopathy, all of that is all come under the same umbrella. Although it may be dealt with under two different bills or acts, but now anyone who provides healthcare services, diagnostics, investigations, all of them are now come under the umbrella of healthcare providers.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Anand. Thank you so much. We'll move on to the next presentation now by Dr. Debashish Bhattacharya. Sir is our former All India Ophthalmological Society president also, and he has one of the most successful group practices, Disha Eye Hospital Group in Barakpur in West Bengal, and he will be talking today on how do I structure my organizational activities to tackle manpower needs. Dr. Debashish Bhattacharya, sir.
Thank you, and a very good morning to all of you. Well, IBM USA was soaring in profits, and IBM Japan was losing and bleeding badly. So IBM thought, why not put the US ways into Japan? And the result was there were more losses. So essentially, let us first understand that what works in a particular demography, in a particular culture, may not work somewhere else. So essentially, we will be talking about the Disha experience. So might not be true for all of us. India is a very big demography and a very diverse too. Oh. How does it move?
Can you help with the slide moving, please? Audio-visual team. The slide is not moving. Another technologically advanced son. He is Dr. Debashish Bhattacharya's son, who is taking care of Disha Eye hospitals.
It's important for us that we understand that every organization evolves around its fundamentals, its core thing. So ours was it came out of a superfluous practice and then into a hospital, and eventually we followed our followings, and now we have 18 centers which does 12 lakh patients a year and about 1 lakh of surgeries. And we aspire that the last person we can reach and we can attend his aspirations to participative healthcare, and by providing quality eye care at affordable cost. So that is the bottom line. We really work hard on costs, and as Anand was saying, that the best thing to use and the cheapest thing to use to minimize cost was technology. So one thing definitely comes in this patient experience is on-time services. We had always a lot of patients. I mean, we never ran out of patients. So on-time service was a very big thing, and that is where the concept of appointments came. So, today we give 5,000 appointments every day. There are 20% dropouts, and the 20% are filled in by the emergencies or the walk-ins. So not like our bigger brother Arvind, where they can manage so many people walking in. So essentially, our idea is to have a very lean and clean system. I like the Indigo flying experience, and we try to copy as much of that. So, and essentially, any transaction that is done is actually captured. Almost we try to capture every transaction in our premises. And definitely scheduling is a very big thing, and that is where the strategic minds and the seniors in the hospital are involved to schedule, which goes down to even a data entry operator or even the housekeeping. And essentially we have a very flat organization. It's just doctors, and there are staff of various age groups with various responsibilities. So we don't have collateral entries like a CEO or a manager of this, or the HR head or something like that. So, and the other thing that flows well with us is inter-branch evaluations. Like obviously these performances, like maybe even the cash registry of a particular branch, and the collection is actually looked after by another accountant in another branch. So he okays it. Okay, I mean, all these bills and OPD and IPD receipts have been tallied, and that's how it goes on. I mean, so this is the system flow of our and obviously when we say affordable cost and with our aspirations in mind, the basic difference is whether when we talk affordable, what does that mean? Even the highest practice in South Bombay is affordable, otherwise how is it sustaining, even if it is charging 2 lakhs for a cataract surgery? So essentially it means that one is trying to be inclusive and is looking towards growth through economies of scale, and the other is probably trying to be exclusive. Now, to the most costly component, we believe, are the doctors, and so we have a salary, but it is essentially a fee for service. For every work, they get something, and that is an end of year calculation. So essentially, it is a fee for service which is deferred end of the year. And we encourage doctors to have brands, whether that's how we put in the sense of belonging and their the doctorness into the service. And obviously we incentivize brands in the sense that suppose a joining in doctor would get 2,500 for a cataract surgery. Well, if he's a brand, then he chooses not to operate on Disha patients but his own patients. So there he gets 5,000. So he gets double what he gets, and then he is then a separate entity altogether. So following this, consultants earn from 1.5 to 11 lakhs per month. We pay more in the districts because those are areas where doctors usually don't like to go. They want to stay in the city. The average salary is around 4.5 lakhs. The recruitment is mainly through fellowship programs. We cannot afford other training programs because all is funded by patients' revenues. And of course, we take from collateral entries. And evaluation, yes, one factor which we consider very importantly is the compliance. How much did you advise and what was your compliance ratio? So we play a lot of emphasis on that. And on that, a cataract surgeon probably is the vision at operation, whether he's operating at 6'9", 6'6", 6'6", 6'12". So those are important. So this is the monthly payout. I can share it with you. So again, in the staff area, we recruit usually graduates. Now it is always below 25 because we are a 25-year organization, so the organizational age is becoming a big consideration. Near home helps, and we test them on computer skills and communication skills. Somebody has good communication skills, then they will be in the front desk or a counselor or that kind of area. They have good computer skills, backups or data entries and technicians, this kind of area. So that's where in this 1 year we distribute them. And even the top staff who probably does strategic screening grow through the ranks. So there are, and how do we improvise, which is about 9% is our staff cost of our total revenue. Because they become, they do multiple functions. That's how they grow up the ladder. They're trainers, they're facility heads, they're system heads. Facility heads meaning they look after a particular branch. So all centers are centrally controlled, as in from Barrackpur, and the evaluation factors are attendance, the number of services, because everything is captured. The counselors, compliance, the doctor and the patient's feedback on Facebook, because our Facebook the Google ratings are all organic, and so they give us a good review. So inventory is centrally controlled. We have a van which goes around serving these IOLs, medicines to every branch. There's the instruments which are other than medicines, stationaries, IT, specs, pharmacy instruments. What we outsource is security, housekeeping, canteen, the MEP, the electrical and air conditions, etc. Mediclaim, I want to share this small point with you. We have this outsourced to an organization called ITU. They take 4% of the surgical revenue, but that ensures that, we start deducting after a year, so 100% of the bills are come back. So whatever has not come back after 1 year, we start deducting from there 4%. So, these are our staff strength. What I want to emphasize, this is the staff strength, right, Ronnie? Yeah, so we operate these hospitals. We have outsourced people, but 768 staff handle 100 doctors across 18 centers. So we, I think, do a fair good job. And this is the age that I was trying to say. So we're trying to improve on that 20 to 25 years. If you say how many people leave us, not many really, but I think it will be around 8 to 10%. And these are our vital staff, that people at that 45, after 50, sometimes some people are a problem, but that you have to respect. But these are the people who have brought you here, so, so the salary range, this plus, of course, 2 months incentive at least, and of course, we provide food for every employee on the campus, at least the afternoon lunch. So I didn't know what to handle this topic, because, it's like, how do you run across the organizational activities depending to tackle manpower needs. Well, I think manpower is perhaps the most important is the most important capital that we will be, will be available to us. And that's why our country is so positively poised, because we have such a young bloom, as this LDP program itself shows. And so I think our biggest capital is human capital, and we must definitely use it to the maximum. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Before I come to Dr. Vandana for her views on this, sir, we know that from a very small clinic in Calcutta, you have grown into a $1 million hospital. What would your one message be to the youngster? Because everything that you have shown is what Disha is now. But you had a long journey. And what would your small message be to the young crowd in this leadership development program of how they should go about trying to reach the same goals that you have achieved?
It's always brick by brick. It has been for me and for Disha also. And at every step, suppose you have constructed this much, I mean, you are in a position to give. So share that position. Giving or sacrifice is not a big connotation. It's just giving your immediate position of strength for a more efficient future. Just share it, and I think there are many people you can handhold and you can grow up with. So, and please be inclusive. In the whole thing, I forgot to mention one thing. I think the objectivity of any, even the smallest practice or the most elitist practice should be, I mean, the most elitist practice should incorporate a staff who can actually get themselves operated with 2 lakhs or their parents operated. So at least see that your staff are comfortable with the rates of the hospital, because we are 1 doctor or 2 doctors or 100 doctors, but there are 10 people backing us. So those 10 people at least will go back to the community, and that's what the image of the hospital is. And if they say that a hospital is expensive or is unaffordable, the whole exercise, I think, is futile.
Thank you,
So
sir.
one question for you, sir. For the sake of the audience who want to know, when you start a new hospital,
Yeah.
how do you plan it? How do you infuse the capital, and how do you make it work?
First thing, for people, younger people, I would say, never think of a surgical setup if you are not growing at 20% and you're not seeing 30 patients a day. It won't work. It's not viable. So gather those 30 patients, and you must be in a growing mode. I mean, it's a very nice question, Dr. Sanjay, because that is the critical thing. Because, you know, there are surgery centers on offer. And the surgery centers probably, I mean, the Calcutta, they give you for 8,000, good infrastructure. Now you work out your own costs, it won't come to 8,000 rupees unless you have that, 30 patients, because the translation is 7% will go for cataract surgery. I'm talking the commonest intervention. So essentially that is the starting point, I think. And we do it differently, like we follow wherever in districts 50 kilometers, in the city 10 kilometers. Wherever we see 50 patients coming, we open a hospital, because our critical number is around 150 patients a day.
I think the question Dr. Sanjay has asked, we need a whole session on it to answer that question. But in the meanwhile, I'll ask Dr. Vandana, ma'am, your views on how to tackle manpower, because whenever we are trying to grow, we are worried that another consultant may leave us, or our staff who we are training so much may leave us, and that then the whole thing hampers our growing. And what sir has also presented, we need your views on that.
Sure. Thank you, sir. I think sir has given a great presentation, and Disha, of course, is known for its excellent manpower, the quality of care, everything. I think from my perspective, when we started the organization, I will divide it into two different parts. For doctor management, I think it is separate, and for staff management, it will be separate. Doctors, once you hire, you have to be very clear, one, of course, about their skills, because it's an outcome-based, practice. If you're not giving good outcomes, then whatever you do is not going to make any difference at all. So you have to be very sure the kind of doctors you're hiring. Secondly, once you're sure that they are skill-wise and culturally they fit with you, then you have to leave them alone. You don't have to micromanage them. However, at the same time, a clinical audit from time to time, just to make sure that your patients are actually getting the care that they are supposed to get, and intermittently having sessions where the doctors are also trained on other things, and complete transparency with doctors. So they know everything what happens in the organization, usually works really well. because then they know how much they are contributing, both from a clinical perspective as well as from a financial perspective. And if they have any requirements in terms of training, in terms of any other thing, then making sure that we actually support them. Actually managing doctors is really not that challenging, but I feel managing staff, at least this has been my personal experience, managing staff has been more of a challenging experience. So for staff, over the years, what I have realized is that one, hiring is very critical. That when you are hiring, you have to be very, very sure that what kind of people you are hiring, both from a personality, their skill and culture perspective. Once they hire, their induction into the organization, it has to be a proper process. Because normally what happens in any organization is once somebody joins, you just throw them into the department that, okay, now you go do your work. But I think it's very important that they are actually inducted into the organization and they understand what the organization is all about, what we do, and why they are also an important part of the organization. The second part would be their continuous training, because we expect people to do work, but from time to time, naturally things happen whereby staff is not able to do their work as effectively as you would want them to. In that situation, a continuous monitoring and training is very, very useful. And sometimes it can be a generalized training where you're doing motivation, you're inspiring them, but sometimes it has to be a very specific training related to their area of expertise and how they can become better. Normally we say that if something is not going wrong, and it can be because of two things: either your processes are not right, or the person sitting is not right. And more often than not, it's not the person, it's the processes. So once you're very clear that your processes are right, then definitely you need to make sure that you're training your staff repeatedly. Then motivation and incentivizing. That's very important, at least in bigger cities like Mumbai, because it's very easy for them to leave. Sometimes people will leave you for just like even 2,000-3,000 rupees of hike, they will leave you. But usually if they are motivated and they are incentivized and they are appreciated in a proper fashion. So we have certain programs that we have used over the years. For example, we have something called Fun and Frolic sessions. So Fun and Frolic basically is a way for us to get together every month, whereby we do, we award people over whatever they have done good in the month. We give them a full update of what we have achieved in the month. And then we play games, which is basically team building games and all of that. And we celebrate all the staff birthdays. Besides that, we do daily huddles. So daily huddles is just a 5-minute activity where the staff comes together and we quickly discuss if there is anything important. Sometimes if all the staff cannot come together, then it is done department wise. So that also helps. And then of course annual things, like you celebrate annual occasions where you're again motivating your staff, you're awarding people who've worked well, annual picnics, etc. So I think motivation, incentivizing, and according to the department, we also make sure that they get incentivized. If the organization is doing well, sir mentioned 2 months of bonus. I think that's a fantastic thing to do. We can have that in many different forms. The bonus can be given, which is also a great way to incentivize. So if I have to say 4 ways, one is hiring well, secondly induction well, third is training, and fourth will be motivation and incentivizing. Those 4 pillars can actually make staff stick with you for a very long time.
I'm so glad I asked you the question. Thank you so much for the inputs. Dr. Preetam Samant.
I just wanted to add, if you have understood, I think, as I said, the IBM story, I think we have a bank of 4,000, the HR has a bank of 4,000 people waiting to get employed. We can pick and choose. Satyajit might also have a similar experience because we come from the East. But, it has its own problems because the staff performs best up to the age of 45, 50 at the most. But then what? That is another area, but yes, we accept it as a gratitude.
So we are running low on time, so just one quick comment from Dr. Preetam.
The second thing is, about doctors. What we said about the brand stuff, please understand, that's the time when doctors leave 40. And that's where they expect more. And that is where organizations, or even in your practice, that young friend will be jittery to leave, because the moment he knows, he appreciates his brand value, we don't respect. And please, be frank on money, even with the staff. I mean, our biggest subsidy is in the OPD. In Disha's, frugal minimalism, our OPD patient, one OPD patient beyond consultation costs 322 rupees. That's not the doctors just, all that appointments, everything, optometrists, it costs space, instruments, it costs 322 rupees. So we must to make them, the doctors realize, when we calculate a doctor, we explain them that, see, for one surgery you have to see 15 patients. 15 patients into 300 rupees. That is 4,500 rupees of subsidy before you have done a cataract surgery. And then we are paying you 3,000 rupees, 2,500 for a youngster. So we are actually paying you 6,500 rupees.
One quick comment by Dr. Preetham, please.
I just had a question for sir only on this thing about doctors and seniority. So do you have only salary based and incentive model, or do you share equity also with your doctors?
No, we don't. We had bad experiences, we've stopped.
Okay, we'll move on to the next presentation. Thank you so much, Dr. Debashish, sir. The next presentation is by Dr. Arvind Srinivasan. How do I structure my organizational activities to improvise the utility of existing resources? Dr. Arvind Srinivasan, please.
Thank you. Thanks AOC and ARC for this opportunity. I know I'm running against time. I'll try to make it as short as possible. So the topic is, how do I structure my organizational activities to improvise the utility of existing resources? So these are the different aspects that we consider in a patient-centered model in the Aravind Eye Care system. So we obviously look at quality, efficient service, giving value, high volume, reaching the people, and financial sustainability. It's probably true for all our organization, nothing unique to any one particular organization. How do I keep? Yeah. So, for the resources, it is not only the human resources. I think Dr. Debashish covered it extensively, but it's also the physical resources. A lot of times, the physical resources that we put is very significant in all our organizations. Hospitals have become very expensive in terms of equipments, in terms of land, in terms of building. All of that needs to be considered as an important resource to be able to utilize the infrastructure and the resources very quickly. So the principles of efficiency are, one is debottlenecking. I'm sure all the time we are looking at debottlenecking. All of us in multiple ways we are looking at it. It's kind of an attitude to have. Can I find a little better way of doing things than what I did yesterday? Incremental innovation, which is maybe an additional equipment, maybe an additional manpower, constantly striving to tweak the problem. The debottlenecking mostly comes from process change, but incremental innovation will also come from process and people. Structural intervention is usually infrastructure related. You would add an additional room or additional building. And paradigm shifts are you going to move away from what you're doing? Like vision centers, you're planning to see some more patients outside your hospital, not within your hospital, or establish another hospital. Dr. Debashish said when he gets 50, he tries to put a hospital. That's a paradigm shift. So that's saying that I'm going to debottleneck my existing hospital and trying to add another infrastructure there. So this is a presentation that shows about the Chennai Aravind Eye Hospital, which we started about 5 years ago. So we kind of went through a 5-year strategic plan because this is a fairly large infrastructure. So we wanted to utilize the infrastructure adequately before long. And we also moved into Chennai, which is, as we all know, it's a well-served market. It's not a virgin market by any means. And we wanted to ensure that we are able to reach and utilize the infrastructure far better. So we set ourselves a goal that within 5 years, we should reach about 3,000 outpatients and do about 300 surgeries. So try to reach about 100,000 surgeries within 5 years so that the infrastructure and the people and everybody gets utilized better. So these are the 4 elements that we started working on. One is constantly focus on operational efficiency, keep ensuring that we are utilizing whatever resources we have appropriately to the maximum extent possible, and constantly improve communications, because in a large organization, communication silos can develop, and that will become pretty hard in the later stages to break them. And also different metrics to evaluate. I'll share some of the examples for each of these. And also look at revamping recruitment. If you're growing from 0 to 100,000 surgeries in 5 years, you kind of need a very different paradigm of recruitment and bringing in the manpower. So this is how we have scaled so far. COVID was unexpected. So last year we did about 48,000 odd surgeries, and this year we'll probably touch about 69,000 surgeries in Arvind, Chennai. So this was the challenge for us. We started as a 107-member startup team, and now we are a little more than 500 people as we speak. So this was a challenge for us. How do you increase 5x in 4 or 5 years, and keep the culture, keep the values, and keep our belief systems in place, and be able to execute at that pace. So daily operations, one of the key words that comes when you're working at this scale is accountability. How do you bring accountability at every level? It doesn't start with the employee, but it also starts with the leadership. How does, like every month, 30th, we would pay the salary. That's one accountability measure that you want to keep sticking to. And there are other accountability measures, like are you showing up on time? Is your facility clean? So at every level, accountability becomes very important, because if that is not there at this stage of building an organization, you have a lot more problems to deal with after the first 5 years of the growth. So you're kind of in a honeymoon period now. So a lot of things that you do kind of sells. But if you don't do the right things and build the foundational structure very well, later it becomes very difficult for the next level of leadership or next leader to come and clean the place. So these are different ways. I'm sure all of us use different metrics. So we look at our patient load status, how was daily. This is an WhatsApp group that we maintain very actively. We also tried another communication tool called Stitch. We tried to use Stitch as a communicating tool to talk to all our doctors and teams. Very difficult to communicate to doctors. We all work in the same organization. A retina doctor will never speak with a glaucoma doctor. If it's a first floor and second floor, they would have never visited second floor for years together. So these are things that can very well happen in an organization. So how do you break those silos? Today, technology does enable us to break some of those things. Scheduling OT. So here we have expectations clearly. How many surgeries is doctor supposed to do? How much are they doing every day? And what is the arrival pattern to be able to plan? Because we are, as you can see, we are pretty much doubling every year. So that unless we plan, what works for 500 OPD does not work for 800 OPD. What works for 800 does not work for 1200. So you will have to constantly keep tweaking the system to be able to do that. So we monitor doctors' performance very closely, because doctors are the critical resources. And it's not in a way to police them or monitor them, to be able to be kind of a spying around them, but it is also to bring in accountability and enable them to do better. When you're kind of doing at this level of monitoring, they should have a confidence that we are here to support them. If you're doing surgery at that volume or seeing patients, do you want the best-in-class technology? Do you want the best-in-class software? How do we help you to get there? It's not, we want you to work smart. So that was a kind of implicit understanding you will have to do. Otherwise, this becomes purely a policing mechanism, which people would leave very quickly. So we kind of set ourselves to implement lean in a big way. So we constantly focus on how to go about doing it. So this is what I said, this was our goal, which kind of drove us till this level. So I think Dr. Devashish has covered many of these points, but I'll just quickly go through it. Constant debottlenecking, managing demand. Demand varies, as we all know. Post-COVID, the demand structure is a lot more varied. The summers peak in south and north. All of that is kind of changing as we can speak. Constantly remove waste, because you are building redundancy in the system. You need redundancy. Mornings you're busy, afternoon you're not busy. So you need redundancy. How do you handle redundancy very well? How do you engage patients constantly? Because at 2,000 patients a day, it can be a nightmare if you don't engage with them positively. You don't want to be troubleshooting and crisis managing pretty much every day. Then the whole leadership bandwidth is cynical at the end of the day, not positive and enjoying the process of giving sight. Communication within team and stakeholders. And again, another important thing is execution of ideas within 48 hours. Small ideas do come. Most of the time, it's small ideas that come. So how do you execute constantly to ensure that the team feels we are moving ahead in the organization? So goal setting is very important. Again, lean management, different ways to debottleneck. How do you take care of these people? So finally, we have kind of gone through the next 5-year plan. Like, we have finished our first 5-year plan. Next year, to 2023, will be our end of this. But the next 5-year plan, we said we will have to Arvind Chennai ecosystem. Now we are moving from the hospital to an ecosystem. We said, can we do 6,000 outpatients and 500 surgery. So it's altogether a different level of thinking, because you are moving away from your existing infrastructure, creating additional infrastructure in and around the hospital. We cater to about 16 million populations. How do you saturate eye care in the segment of the population that we service, the way we go about doing it? So again, different challenges. So we have identified these are the different areas that we need to work for the next 5 years, from 2023 to 2028. So this is a work in progress, as you can see. So finally, a lot more needs to be done. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arvind. One question, what works for 100 doesn't work for 500. All this planning that is happening, because we are all ophthalmologists busy, who is doing actually all this planning, or what has to be done for the next 500? Before I come to Dr. Nitin, I would like to ask your comments about who is actually doing all the planning.
I think
are the doctors in Arvind doing this, or some MBAs?
Doctors in Arvind are doing this. Mostly doctors in Arvind. We definitely get resources. Like these projects were done from University of Michigan. The graduates, MBA graduates, have come and did that project. But execution is done at Arvind. And most of us wear two hats, right? One as a doctor, another as institution.
Like I understand, yours is the world's largest eye hospital in floor area. If we see the new Arvind Eye Hospital in Chennai, is that true?
7.5 lakh square foot, maybe that's close. But you'll be surprised. There is a hospital in Kaduna, Nigeria, which is about 2.2 million square foot, but hardly do about 10 surgeries a day. So physical infrastructure, there are phenomenal infrastructures available. Yeah.
Dr. Nitin sir, we would like your comments on the presentation of the.
So I think between Dr. Arvind and Debashish, I think most of the things have been covered. So I think the important point is, like Debashish also pointed, is to see to it that your human resources management is so good that your attrition rate is kept at as low as possible, because it's very difficult to lose a good staff. Like it is known that for even a small thing, even a small increment, there are people who would leave you, especially in the metros here. We have this problem that maybe it's only a matter of 1,000, 1,500 rupees, but they would leave you. The other important thing I felt, what we have seen is, unless one does a staff problem resolution at an early date, not just putting it ahead, we'll see next month, we'll see after next quarter. So that is something which they don't like, and then that is where they would want to probably try out other avenues. One point which Debashish made was about the Google reviews and about trying to get a good review. We normally discourage our staff from asking the patients to give us a good review, because very often we are also dependent on knowing how our hospital is functioning from a genuine review. Because when you ask your staff to insist that please give us a good review, we may get all good reviews and we may be in a wrong place. And so it's important that let the reviews come in. And the most important thing is to answer the reviews and to sort out the problem, so that they know that something is being done, not that it's a bad review, so ignore this person. In fact, it's more important to pay more attention to the person who's giving you a bad review than the people who have given you a good review. Obviously, you need to be thankful for the people giving you good reviews also. The other thing was, like Dr. Arvind also pointed out, is the technological advancement in debottlenecking, which is very, very important. Changing trends over a period of time has to be seen. New avenues, for example, like post-COVID, there was a lot of people wanting to have an online consultation. So setting up a system for the online consultation. So keep looking out for new avenues all through. And I think that's a very, very valid point, especially in these post-COVID times.
Yes, please.
So first of all, excellent presentation, Dr. Arvind. It was absolutely mind-blowing. I just wanted to pass a comment related to planning. Of course, they're a big organization. They do planning for 5-year planning. But I just want to say that I think the same thing even individual practitioners can do in their own practice by looking at their own numbers, by tracking them, and just basically having a little bit of a vision of that. How do you see your setup maybe 1 year from now or 2 years from now? I see that my colleagues don't do that planning at all. They have no idea what their numbers are. They are just practicing. And I see that's not really the best way that you can even think about managing and growing your practice. So I think, Dr. Arvind, that's a great point, and I think we all should, adopt into our practices.
Thank you. Dr. Kamal Kapoor.
Final comment I would like to make is, you can't build large organizations with fear. I'm going to lose this individual, they're going to go away from me, how do I going to retain it? So what we try to do is, what will work is also to build a pipeline of people that will replace the people that will leave. People will leave. You will have an attrition. Zero attrition doesn't work well. So it will be good to think that way as well, rather than constantly be in a fear that this fellow is going to leave you. And more so, they will leave you if you are in fear.
One of the most fearless guys we know is Dr. Kamal Kapoor. Your comments, sir.
Thank you, everybody. I think couldn't agree more with everybody here. You have to ride the horse called technology. You cannot do without it. I slightly disagree with the fact that you also encourage negative online reviews. See, the dictum of any business is you tell the people that if you're unhappy, tell me. If you're happy, you tell people. But if I'm asking him to tell people that he's unhappy, so I am shooting myself in the foot. So I think it's a good idea to have a complaint redressal panel. And it's very easy to catch these patients who are unhappy. They should be caught, nipped in the bud. There should be a special team which looks after these people, who just kind of cradle lifts them and takes care of them and turns them around. And there should be a dedicated team of foot warriors who are encouraging your reviews. 70,000 reviews at 4.9 says a lot. That's what I do in my organization. So I encourage people to give reviews. Attrition is a natural phenomenon. We aim for the lowest attrition, but I couldn't agree more with him. People will leave. People will leave. So it's a good idea to have a succession plan. It does two things. The person who wants to leave, he starts knowing that if he leaves, there is somebody to take care of him. So he's not indispensable. The people at the bottom know there's space above. So they're also striving hard, honing their skills, cutting the lines, cutting the borders, and pressurized to perform to come to the level of the guy next to them. So in every department, you should have a succession plan. And it's a good idea to disclose to people that, okay, you're in line next, you're in line next. And even if this person doesn't leave, probably you'll get a similar post in another center or another setup. So this encourages excellence amongst all. But if one person is assured that you're the one and you're the one, and once you go, we are doomed, you will be doomed. This person will leave you because he will keep encashing you, milking you, getting his raise every time. And the next time he gets a raise, he takes that letter to the next competition, and that's what happens. And then planning. I would do it reverse. I would see how am I working and where I want to be in 5 years. And from there, I work backwards. So maybe it's a little different way we work, but nearly the results are same. Suppose I have a footfall of 1,000 patients a day in my center, and I want 5,000 in 3 years. So what should I be doing at 2.5 years? To have something near to 4,200. What should I be doing at 2 years? So I think in my team and the way I've built a system and the way everybody should be working would be throw your hat and then go backwards. Because if you plan, it can sometimes be derailed. But if you project in the future and then work backwards, suppose you want to have a patient footfall of, say, with relatives included, 800 a day. How much of capacity would you need for that? How much of staff would you need to that? Do you have the systems? If you don't, would you be looking for a new place? If you're looking for a new place, what are the kind of debts you're ready to raise in the organization? What is the kind of equipment you look for? What is the kind of HR resource you look for? Because if you go from here to there, you can become fearful. But once you imagine having 100 or 1,000 OPD or 50 or whatever your aim is, you already imagined that. The structure in your mind is there, and then you pull it backwards. Because if today I'm having an OPD of 100 and I project 500 in next year, is very, very fearful. So your planning could be full of fears and little hesitant. So it's a good idea to throw your hat, plan it, plan the verticals properly, have special teams take care of that, and then bring it backwards. It's very, very doable.
I'll have to interrupt. Thank you very much for this session, which comes to an end now. I'd like to thank Dr. Sanjay Chaudhary sir, Dr. Vandana Jain ma'am, Dr. Preetam Samant, Dr. Kamal Kapoor sir, and Dr. Nitin Balakrishnan sir for giving expert comments. We'll continue with